Hola, ¿qué tal? En Kidam Global es lunes de webinar, un espacio para iniciar la semana con inspiración para que tú puedas lograr resultados extraordinarios en tu vida y trabajo. Yo soy Natalia Martí, tu anfitriona de hoy, y quiero iniciar como siempre dando la bienvenida a esta fantástica comunidad de aprendizaje que nos visita de muchos lugares. Tenemos personas desde España, Ecuador, Querétaro, Guadalajara y por supuesto de aquí del Estado de México y del Distrito Federal. Muy buenos días a todos, esperamos que disfruten mucho hoy de nuestra plática. Tenemos algunas notas técnicas, arriba pueden ver su conexión. Si está en verde es que tienen buena conexión, si está en amarillo es que tienen una conexión media y si está en rojo quiere decir que no tienen tan buena conexión. Entonces, pues por favor chequen su módem para que pues puedan disfrutar mucho más de nuestra presentación. Pues muy buen. También tenemos otra indicación. Arriba pueden cambiar el idioma, en donde está la banderita. Ahí también pueden cambiar, si quieren ver toda la sala de chat en inglés, en español, etcétera. Y donde está el chat también tiene como un engrane. Ahí pueden cambiar también la configuración. Si quieren ver las letras del chat pues más grandes, la fuente también la pueden cambiar ahí. Y pues bueno, yo soy Natalia Martí, soy directora de comunicación en Kidam Global y hoy tenemos como invitado a Tim Carswell. Él es entrenador del equipo de ciclismo campeón del mundo y ganador de medalla olímpica de Nueva Zelanda. Y en esta ocasión nos hablará sobre lo que significa liderar equipos exitosos. Él ha aplicado una metodología a su equipo de ciclismo, que es el que los ha llevado a obtener varias medallas en los campeonatos pues mundiales. Entonces, él nos va a hablar un poco de esta relación con los negocios. So, I'm going to present him. So, hi, Tim, how are you?
Hi Natalia, how's things?
Great. How's there?
Very good, very good.
Okay, so I'm going to leave you with our invitees.
Okay, cool. Yeah, hi everyone. It's nice to be here today, and thank you to Natalia and Queen Global for inviting me. Um, I understand being a New Zealand accent might be a little bit difficult to understand sometimes, so I'll try and take it fairly slowly, and hopefully that should help things uh, on the on that front. Um, in this webinar, I'm hoping that you will see some of the parallels between high performance sport and the business world, and from that maybe some lessons that you can take out. I won't try and draw back to those too much throughout the presentation, but I'm sure my discussion may spark some thoughts, and of course, please feel free to ask some questions once we get to the end. So just looking at what we've got in store. So track cycling, we'll just have a quick look at what that is for those of you who haven't seen it before. I'll go through a quick introduction of myself, and then we'll get into the crux of it. We'll have a look at the Cycling New Zealand program, which I've been involved with for 15 years now, and then we'll just have a look at a few of the lessons that I've learned in that time with Cycling New Zealand, and then, as talked about at the end, we can have a few questions. So, track cycling, what is it? I've got a wee clip here for you. I think Natalia's going to load it up.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to play the video.
Cool. So that's just some footage from the World Championships earlier this year, and you can see it's a pretty full-on sport. Held in an indoor velodrome there, 250 meters. Pretty exciting, the speed of it, and we'll have another wee look at some more footage later on. But if you want to learn more about the sport, there's lots of information out there on the internet. So I won't go into too much detail. Other than say it's a very enjoyable sport to be involved in. So just moving on to just a brief description of myself. I've been involved with cycling since I was 13 years old, and attended 2 Olympic Games as an athlete back in 1996 and 2000. Following my cycling career, I went straight into business world, worked for a retail chain in New Zealand, and worked as the chief financial officer there and the 2IC through until the time I took up the New Zealand coaching job, which was in 2007. So I began coaching in 2001 at the same time as I was working in the business world, and worked with smaller teams, and also with did a lot of upskilling, I guess, in the space of coaching before I took up the New Zealand job. So I've coached at the last 2 Olympic Games, 2008 and 2012. During that time, we've won 3 medals with my athletes. And following the 2012 Olympics, I took up a job at the World Cycling Centre in Switzerland, which was quite an experience. It's based at the same venue as the sport governing body, the UCI. And then I haven't got it down there at the bottom, but I'm now actually back with New Zealand, and I moved back to New Zealand from Switzerland at the end of last year, and now back in the same job that I was previously, which is working with the men's endurance group. So just a quick description then about what the Cycling New Zealand track program looked like when I first came into the program, and we'll have a look at what it looks like now. And so just looking at here with basically the history of New Zealand and track cycling stretched around about 40 years prior to myself coming into the program, and we'd had some pretty solid results during that time: 2 Olympic medals and 9 World Championship medals. We had some very talented athletes through the program. I guess probably the results were more from those talented individuals rather than the organisation of the program as such, because there wasn't really an organised program. It was really just a coach taking athletes away. When I came into the program, there was a new high performance manager that was also employed at exactly the same time, Mark Elliott, who is still with the program and is a fantastic leader of our program. Also at that time, there was only 4 full-time paid staff in the high performance area, so it wasn't a lot of people involved. And there were some volunteers and some part-time people involved also. But the number of athletes also involved in the program was quite small, with only 6 male and 2 female riders. And to the program, there was only 1 year until the Beijing Olympic Games. And so that was a bit of a time of great opportunity for us, but also one that was very challenging. And just to give you an idea of that, it was my first day on the job. I was told that I had to cut our budget by 30%, which I'm sure in the business world, it's always a stressful time. What does the program look like now? So we're looking at it 2015, so it's 7 or 8 years since I took up that position. And in that time, we've now won a further 4 Olympic medals, 28 World Championship medals, including 6 World Champions. We have 3 squad programs within the larger program, and each one of those programs led by a really capable coach, and still under the overall leadership of Mark Elliott. And as I said before, I'm in charge of the men's endurance program. There's 17 full-time staff involved in the high performance area, and then plus we also access external providers from our High Performance Sport New Zealand team, which include nutritionists, strength conditioners, sports psychologists, athlete life mentors, and the like. So there's a lot of people involved in the program now. The numbers of the athletes has also grown quite significantly, up to 35 riders now, with 19 male and 16 female riders involved. And a year out from the Rio Olympics, the program's looking a lot stronger than it was back in 2007. We now have well-established budgets and funding, and both our men's sprint team and our men's endurance team are the fastest teams in the world at the moment, and the endurance team's the current world champions. So just I've given you the overall broad picture. So now just I'll talk a little bit about basically how we've gone from that point of where we were in 2007 to the point we are now. And so I will go over some of the ingredients to our success. I guess I mean there's lots of little things that come into play as well, but I'll just go over some of the big ones that have made a real difference. People is the first one, and when I first came into the program in 2007, one of the first things I really wanted to do was make sure we had the best people involved that we possibly could get. And so I started the process of recruiting all the very best people that I'd worked with, both as an athlete and as a coach over my 25 years of being involved with the sport. And being only 1 year out from the Olympic Games, it was obviously very important that I got that group of staff right around the athletes, and I managed to get that to a large extent. And out of the coaching and staff team, there was only two people that I really wanted that I didn't manage to get. As it turns out, both those people are now involved with our program, which is fantastic. At the same time, we had a few people who didn't fit in to the program anymore, and so those people moved on to other things. And I guess one of the biggest things that I've seen with teams in the past with sport, and I'm fairly certain it's the same in business as well, is that it's really, really important, the team of people that you're working with, and the mix of that team, the people who are involved, the nice mix of serious people and not so serious people can be really important, and we find that with our athletes, having that right mix around them is really crucial to keeping a nice balance to the feel of the team. Even one person who doesn't fit within that balance, I feel it can have a massive influence on the feel of the team, and not only for the staff's sake, but also for the athlete's sake. And I've also seen this in the business world when I worked in the retail business. Just that one person who doesn't quite fit in, and in that case, what we've tried to do is there's no kind way to say it, but we've tried to move them on as quickly as possible. because we realised that that's actually going to be for the best for the program. It's a little bit easier to do this in sport than it is with business. I mean, of course, in business, a lot of the time employment contracts make things a little bit more complicated. But I think probably one of the big things is that, recognising that although it's painful sometimes to move those people on, it's actually going to be much better for the group and for the team that you do make that move and allow them to move on to better things as well, because that's quite often the case, and certainly that's what I've seen as well, that they didn't quite fit the environment that we were in, but went on to things that they were happy to do afterwards as well, and so that's how you'd like to see it. The implementation of change, I guess this is probably one of the biggest things, when we were at that point in 2007 and it had just come into the team. I basically was at a position that I was given free rein, which was lovely. And so I looked at every part of our program and was basically on a mission to improve everything that we were doing. And so looked at right across the board. We talked already about the staffing, but we also looked at who we had within our athletes. We looked at our bikes and equipment, the training methods that we were implementing, and the way we operated as a team, both within the periods when we were in competition, but also when we were working outside, just in the normal day-to-day office. And basically, we changed a huge amount of the way we did things, and this is an interesting, I guess, program that I don't know if any of you would have encountered, but the Great Britain program in track cycling is probably one of the best in the world, if not the best. At the moment, it have been for several years, and they have a very good leader of that program, and Dave Brailsford, and he has a philosophy of marginal gains, and that marginal gains is basically looking at every little area where you can make a tiny little gain. If you can do that 100 times, then those tiny little gains will actually aggregate into a significant gain. And so they had implemented that as their philosophy in the Great Britain program, and through that had established themselves as the leading track cycling nation in the world. I guess you can see at the same time as that was going on the GB program, we were doing something very similar, and we just didn't call it marginal gains, but the same kind of philosophy. And I guess in some ways we were just a little bit more behind in our process, because they had already implemented that in the early 2000s, and so for us we were in a bit of a position of trying to catch up, and certainly I think we've managed to close that gap significantly now. Another one of the ingredients to success is that success breeds success. And the end result of our changes in staffing and our implementation of change was that we came out of the Beijing Olympics with 2 medals, and also we had a world champion at the World Championships that year. So that was great in itself, but it also provided us with some fantastic opportunity. From there, we're a government-funded program, and so our funding increased because of the result of those excellent efforts by the athletes. This then allowed us to do a number of programs. We basically tried to mirror what we'd done with our men's program, with our women's endurance program, and this led to extremely fast success there also, which was that we went to the next World Championships and won 2 medals with our female team. So that was a great next step. From there, we'd proved twice within a couple of years that we had the knowledge and the processes to win on the world stage, and so we proposed another program, which was our sprint program, to the governing body in New Zealand, Sport New Zealand, and that program then grew as well to the extent where last year those guys were the world champions as well, and they're still currently the fastest team in the world. So the structure and planning, there's obviously, you can see just with going from a small program in 2008 at that Olympics, over the next 2 years, growing to a group of nearly 40 athletes, and then also large numbers in staff. This was really a major period of change for us, and we were just lucky that we had such very strong leadership with Mark Elliott, and that we also had engaged some other really strong leaders in with the team, not only in terms of the coaches who started working with the different groups, but also within the back office of how we ran our operations within Cycling New Zealand. So one of the biggest parts of that is we obviously wanted to take next steps in terms of the use of technology, and then also just how we utilize that technology, how we implemented processes that we would then use at every competition, and that really was just a process of replication, and then trying to offer as much opportunity to our new staff to be able to access that and to gain knowledge from that. That's not to say that we're perfect, and we certainly did get it wrong in 1 or 2 places. We did overreach heading into the 2012 Olympics, and I guess we might have got a little bit carried away with how successful we'd been with 3 previous programs, and so tried to implement another program, which did backfire on us a little bit, but in some ways also gave us some valuable lessons in terms of teaching us about how to make sure that we maintain our focus, and especially at very important times, for example leading into the Olympic Games, where the pressures of producing results become even greater, and the focus of the program has to come down to being very specific. However, it's good we haven't made that same mistake again so far. Succession, we've had mixed success in this area. Certainly, this is one of the big ones, both in business and in sport, is bringing new people into the program, and hoping you've made the right choices for the people who will take your program forward. And as I say, we had mixed success here. We had some fantastic people come into the program, and we had some that didn't work out. Again, as I'd said before, with ones who didn't fit, we tried to move them on as quickly as possible for the good of the program, and to keep the momentum of the program moving forward. I guess probably one of the greatest things that for me that proved that we had some really nice succession going on in our program was that in 2012, when I left the program, one of the coaches that had come on board with us in 2009, 2010, stepped into the role of the head coach there, and managed to maintain the momentum of the program extremely strongly. and when I returned 2 years later, the program hadn't stayed still; it kept on moving, and had stepped up another notch or two, which I guess it was really nice to see that that the processes that were put in place didn't rely on one or two people. That was something established, and that it could be maintained with new people coming through. Just skipped over. So just to go over a few of the lessons that we learned here, which again, just the biggest one, I think, around people is, at the very start, recruiting the best. And I think in business, sometimes this gets done a little bit more quickly than we do it in the world of sport, but recruiting people is always very difficult. And we're relying on the fact that you get a CV and maybe a couple of references, and then trying to choose one person over another. We now have policy within Cycling New Zealand where if we don't, then we won't necessarily take anybody on at all, but we may wait a period of time and try and fill that space a little bit later. That had just come off the back of making the wrong choices in earlier years, and that trying to get the best people first up is definitely the best way to approach it, so that you don't lose a lot of time bringing people up to speed and then having to lose them. Once within the program, recognizing that talent and really nurturing it, that applies to both the staff and the athletes. And again, it can be difficult to do, but trying to give as much opportunity as possible to the people who are within the program has been extremely important. And again, upskilling, and these are very important things in business as well. And so we're constantly trying to give the staff as much opportunity, exposure to the highest level. And so for our staff, for our coaches, our managers, our mechanics, our medical staff, everybody who works with the program, we want them to have access to be able to work in the environment of the World Cup level or World Championship level before making that step up to being given the opportunity to work at the Olympic Games. And then obviously retaining those great people is extremely important, and I think that's probably one of the real successes of our program is when you look at the turnover of staff that we've had, it's very, very small, and that just means that you're able to retain such a strong amount of knowledge within the group. And I think everybody recognizes that when you have people leave your business or your program, just the intellectual property that leaves the program or the business at that time, and the time it takes to bring new people up to speed can be a significant loss. And so we work very hard to retain the best people in our programs, and at the moment Cycling New Zealand's working very hard to do that, and trying to put people on long-term contracts to try and ensure that they're keeping that continuity. With growth of the program, as I talked about before, the planning and the goal setting becomes extremely important, and one of the biggest things in sport, and of course business as well, is the measurement of performance. And for us, we had gone from a sport where it was all a little bit based on previous knowledge of athletes coming in and ways to train, but very quickly we recognized the importance of sports science and sports science knowledge that could make a significant difference to helping our training of our athletes, and so that they could get the best out of their training. So the monitoring of how long they would go out for, the intensity that they would train at, and then being able to quantify that is actually very easy to do these days in cycling. And having the sports scientists and the physiologists who know how to interpret that data and then give feedback to the coaches so that they can actually make the training even more worthwhile for the athletes has been of untold value to us. The unreasonable ambition, and that's a phrase that was coined by a cricket coach, Adrian Birrell. It's a notion of around of setting your goals extremely high, and certainly we have done that. Back in 2007 when I came into the program, my goal at that time was to have New Zealand to become one of the top 5 nations in the world. As I discussed before, we now have both of our men's squads as some of the best in the world, and our women's squad are now moving their way up to being that as well. And so I think that for New Zealand, which is a very small nation of 4 million people, it might seem as though it's an unreasonable ambition for us, but our ambition is now to be number 1 in the world, and certainly it might seem like that might not be possible from the outside, but I believe that, and everybody in our program believes that we can actually do that. I think the key thing here is the step-by-step process of that goal setting. It's a pretty simple one, and we do this in our lives, in business, and we do it in sport as well. And so we say we want to be number 1, but there's a lot of little steps between point A and that lofty ambition to make sure that we're tracking through to achieving that goal. The focus. I talked before around not losing focus, and it was a very important lesson for us. And so we do make sure that is a crucial part of how we operate now, is making sure that we don't get distracted off the pathway, and that we make sure that we look after both the athletes and the programs that are producing results. And a big part of that is a 4th point there, which is creating the pathways for success. And again, that is not only for the athletes but also for our staff. We try and make sure that we can show them the paths that have been trodden before by athletes and the programs, and that there is a definite way to achieve success, which is again, it's been done in the business world, it's been done in the sports world by individuals and groups, and so it's not rocket science. It's just simply following the path. Leadership and succession planning. Of course, these are crucial ones in business as well as in sport, and we've been lucky enough to have some fantastic leaders with great vision within the cycling program. Mark Elliott, as I mentioned before, who was previously involved with triathlon and then came into the cycling program and has been a strong and consistent leader of our program. And one of the great things that Mark has instilled in everybody is this culture of continuous improvement and never being satisfied with where you're at. Of course, that doesn't mean that you can't celebrate success when it happens, and certainly we enjoy the successes when they come along, but we're always looking for how we can improve every aspect of our program, and that is why the program still keeps on moving in an upward direction. At the same time, I think one of the great things with our program is the delegation and trust. So when people are put into positions of importance, once they've gained the trust that they've got the skills to be able to do those roles well, then they're given the trust to run with those, and really we've seen fantastic results from that with not only our coaching staff but other staff within our program as well. And one of the biggest things, as I talked about before, is just that succession planning and ensuring the continuity of the program into the future is really so important. That the leadership of the program is really actively working in that area and trying to make sure that that's done in every space. And we do that right across the board in terms of, of course, with our athletes and developing athletes, and we have development programs to make sure that we have good young athletes coming through to step up to the senior levels, but also within every aspect of our program, from, as I talked about before, from our mechanics to our sports science staff, to our coaches, to the people who manage our teams. And that's, again, another crucial part to ensuring that the program is sustainable, no matter who comes in or leaves the program. So the end result of all that hard work, as I said, I've skimmed across just a few of those lessons, but here's the next little clip that I'll get Natalia to pop on from earlier this year at the World Championships in France.
Right now it is neck and neck between these two teams. New Zealand 159.644 against 159.748. These two teams racing each other, and it's very, very close. Remember the world record, 351.659. I don't think they'll get close to that, but it looks like a 355 sort of schedule that these riders are racing to. And both these teams now starting to look really compact and very, very well drilled. New Zealand are now starting to be caught, I think, by, or not caught, but caught back by the Great Britain team, but it is neck and neck on this track. New Zealand, though, still leading very slightly, and Great Britain hitting some pads. So there's a bit of pressure now on the Great Britain team. The pads on the inside of the track, making sure they don't ride on the Côte d'Azur, the blue section. New Zealand still looking good as they head now towards the 3,000 metre point. And it's Great Britain who are ahead in 2:56.408. So they're slightly ahead now. Britain lose a rider. New Zealand still with 4 riders on the track, and they now lose one. So it's 3 against 3. As we head now towards a conclusion of this race. Who's going to take it? It's so close. It is a proper team pursuit here. It's no rider dominating it. It's all about racing each other. All New Zealand make a mistake. They thought they had 3 or 4 riders and they didn't. So a little bit of a mistake there, which gives Great Britain a little bit more of an advantage. I think there's a big burn of pressure going on here. Who's going to take this one? Who is going to take the final run into the finish? It's so close between these two teams. New Zealand under a massive pressure, hitting the line in a moment. It's so close. New Zealand are dropping one rider very slightly. This could cost them. Who's going to take it? Whoa, so close on the line. I think New Zealand have taken it in 3:53.915.
The guys that rode in the final there, the oldest of us were 21 and Regan's only 18, so it's pretty crazy really for that to be the first team to win one.
New Zealand then, the world champions. Here they are, Peter Bulling, Regan Goff, Dylan Kennett, Alex Frame and Mark Ryan.
Yeah, so as I say, that was the end result of a lot of hard work, and not only from us, but also from a lot of athletes and a lot of coaches over many years. We've been trying to win that event, the men's team pursuit, which is widely regarded as the the benchmark of how your nation is performing, because it's an event that requires strength across a number of riders, and that was the first time we'd ever won that. So of 40 years of trying, so pretty exciting, and now for us, with only another year to go to the Olympics, we feel as though we're in a pretty good space. Still lots of work to do, but we feel as though we're on the right pathway to challenge Great Britain, who have been a pretty strong force in track cycling for the last 8 years or so, hopefully for the gold medal next year. So now can open things up, and if you have any questions, more than happy to answer them. So there's a couple being typed up at the moment.
Y si tienen alguna pregunta, creo que ya alguien está escribiendo. I think someone is writing.
Yep.
Ricardo Leiva says, how do you define work team?
Well, teamwork. Within our group, we have it not only with our athletes, but also with our staff. And as I discussed before, for us, it's an extremely important part of what we do, because the tight knit nature of the team, I think, is essential ingredient to success. As I talked about before as well, just having that one wrong person in the team can disrupt the flow of the team, and it can ultimately lead to problems. And so I think that teamwork, whether it's within the sporting context, or whether it's in the business context, when in an office working on projects, is absolutely essential that those teams get on, and that the people relate well to one another, and have trust and belief in one another to achieve success.
Okay, Monica Diaz says, what do you consider your own personal legacy to the team going forward?
Well, I guess, I briefly had talked about before, one of the most exciting things for me going out of the program for a couple of years while I worked at the World Cycling Centre, and then coming back into the New Zealand program, was just seeing that the program hadn't stalled. It had kept on growing. It had kept on utilising processes that we had implemented back when I was within the team, and that there wasn't any, reduction in performance of the team. And so for myself, I'm only a small part of the program. I'm one of the coaches. I was there at the beginning, and obviously have spent a bit of time within the program and trying to make sure that we have built a really strong group going forward. But for me, legacy is that even when I leave again, and I don't know when that will be, that the program still continues to be one of the strongest in the world.
Juan Cristóbal Castillo González says, perhaps one of the most difficult things to do is know how to motivate your team. What is the best way to motivate a team?
Oh, there's a lot of ways there. That's a good question. Within our athletes, probably that they have to find the self-motivation a lot of the time. And of course, it is an important job for myself as a coach, and also the other staff involved with the program to help keep the athletes motivated. But also at the same time, that motivation from the athletes has to come from within. And I guess you see it a lot. The best athletes are quite often the ones who are the most highly motivated, and whether that's motivating themselves to head out the door to go training, or to maintain a really good healthy diet that ensures that they're reaching peak performance. And so I think I'm pretty privileged to be working with such a fantastic group of athletes and staff, because a lot of the time I'm not actually having to do that motivating of them myself, because they have it within themselves.
Thank you. Janina Haddad says, sometimes for me it's difficult to be a leader because sometimes I take the position of one of the players and keep jumping from player to leader. And so how do you suggest I can handle it?
Yeah, that is. It's something that I've experienced as well, and it is a very difficult one. I think, my experience, you do need to have some separation, and I've seen it also with young coaches coming through, maybe because they've already had a lot of interactions with the athletes that they're involved with, that keeping that separation between the leader of the team and the other members of the team is such a challenge. So yeah, I mean, it's something that I think you learn through experience, and certainly that's the way that I learned it. That you need to find the tools to make sure that you conduct yourself in a way that keeps that separation and maintains I guess the respect for the position of the leader of a team.
Okay, then Manuel Pineda says, how do you encourage a team member has potential and can improve their let me see, their performance?
Yep, I guess I talked about upskilling before, and my own personal experience within the business world, and then going through to the sports world, was that in business, I think the upskilling of staff is probably something that doesn't get done really well, but I think is really, really important. And certainly if I was to go back to the business world after my career as a coach, I'd really want to make sure that the staff that I work with do get the opportunities to be involved with courses or seminars to keep them continually growing as staff members. It's very easy in the business world to get wrapped up in the day-to-day of just conducting business, and that those staff, you can't afford to have them disappear for a week to go and do a course. But the gains you get from having those staff go through and do the course and then come back with some fresh perspective and new ideas, I'm absolutely certain is of enormous value both to them and to the business. So I think that that it's a very, very important thing, both for them personally and for the business as a whole.
Okay, Claudia Castillo says, what happens when you cannot choose the people who's going to be in your team, and what do you recommend?
Oh, that's a big challenge. And I have had that happen in a few cases. And I guess the most significant ones that I can think of, when I've had staff sort of forced on me, invariably they haven't worked out, and I don't think that's because I've not wanted it to work. It's just that I think that if you're actively involved with the process of the people that you work with who are coming through to work with your team, it certainly does make things a hell of a lot easier. And as I talked about before, I look at the groups that I work with, and I really want it to be a nice mix of the right types of people, because I think if you don't have that mix, then really it can lead to bad performance. And so if I was in that situation myself, then straight away I'd be going to the supervisor and saying, either one, can I please be involved in the process of the selection of the people who work within my group, or if I had a problem with a specific person within my team, then I would try to get it resolved as quickly as possible. And I guess there's a few ways to do that. As I say, in the sports world, it's a little bit easier to move people out of groups than it is in the business world, I know. So these are all challenges. As leaders, we have to get outside our comfort zones quite often and face up to people and to talk to our superiors and to get the best out of our teams. We have to be brave and do that sometimes.
Okay, Roberto Perez Olguera says, can everyone work on a team?
Well, certainly in my experience, there's a few people who can't, and it comes down to personalities. But I think everybody has their talents. I've got no doubt about that. You see it everywhere. Everybody's got their own area of speciality, and some people are fantastic at working with other people in the groups, and then others mightn't be so good at that working within groups, but can still play a really important part of contributing to what happens within the group. And certainly we get that a little bit with our sports scientists. Can sometimes be interesting personalities, maybe not so good at one-on-one interaction with people, but are fantastic working in the space of crunching data and producing reports and recommendations to how we can tweak the training to make our athletes go better. And I'm sure, again, some interesting examples you guys will be able to think of there of similar people that you work with in the business world.
Okay, now Hector Garcia asks, which do you think is the most important quality on a leader?
Oh, there's so many different parts to being a leader. I mean, I think this is well documented. Again, everywhere. From the textbooks to anything that you read on the internet about leadership. You have to wear so many different hats, and certainly that is the case in sport as well as business again. So being able to motivate staff, to motivate athletes is important, to provide vision for your team and to make sure that the team keeps on track. I'm just trying to think of some good examples. To making sure that there's great opportunity within the group. I think that there's an abundance of information out there. For me personally, I think that the best leaders I've seen within the sports context is with that they have great knowledge about the sport itself. They also have great knowledge, great theoretical knowledge through doing courses or doing degrees at university. So maybe they've done some courses about physiology. They may have done some leadership courses, and those types of seminars. And then the other thing is that just having just the personality that they can actually relate to people, and they can talk to people. So they can talk to athletes, they can talk to other staff, they can have the ability to really engage with people. And I think those three things combined are the crucial things that lead to a very successful coach. And again, I think there's obviously some important lessons there for the business side of things.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Actually, they are thanking you for your answers.
Yep, I've seen a few messages down there, so that's you're welcome, you guys. Hopefully it's been interesting. Just a little snapshot of what we do, and hopefully it's provoked some thinking around the way that you operate in business, and that there might be something there that you can then follow up by having another look online. I'm sure there's some great stuff there. I talked about some things there like marginal gains with David Brailsford, unreasonable ambition. There's a lot out there that you can use as really good food for thought from sport that relates directly across to working with teams in business.
Okay, so thank you a lot, Tim. I think I don't know if there's another question. We're saying thank you. Claudia Guayo, Francisco Laborde says thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for your talk. It was very interesting and it was very nice to have you here.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for having me, Talia.
Yeah, okay.
Cool. Wrapped up.
Perfecto, pues muchísimas gracias. Les recuerdo de nuestro próximo webinar, que será el próximo lunes 29 de junio. Va a ser Mónica Díaz, directora general de Equidam Global, va a dar este webinar que se llamará Lealtad, un acróstico organizacional. Entonces los esperamos el próximo lunes, como siempre, a las 10 de la mañana. Nosotros somos Equidam Global, nuestra dirección es equidamglobal.com. Y pues somos una empresa que está desde 1990, somos orgullosamente mexicanos y efectivamente globales. Entonces pueden checar todas nuestras soluciones en nuestra página de internet. Ya saben, nuestro programa, pues digamos core, que es el elemento humano, y también tenemos otros programas como el sonido del líder, la visión del líder, la teoría de aspiraciones y demás. Ahí pueden checar toda la información. Y pues muchísimas gracias por todo. Es así como llegamos al final de otro webinar más de Equidam Global, donde cada lunes puedes encontrar inspiración para lograr resultados extraordinarios en tu vida y trabajo. Muchísimas gracias a Team Carswell por estar hoy con nosotros y a esta fantástica comunidad de aprendizaje de la que formas parte. Muchas gracias por ser nuestra inspiración. Recuerda que si estás viendo este webinar en vivo, muy pronto recibirás la grabación para que la compartas, y también puedes seguir nuestros webinars en el sitio, en nuestro canal de YouTube, que acabo de pegar el link hace un ratito, bueno, hace como 2 minutos, ahí lo pegué, para que se inscriban, así que cada que publiquemos un nuevo video ustedes puedan recibir un correo de que ya está disponible, o también en Facebook pueden seguirnos. Síguenos por todos los medios posibles, que nos encanta estar en contacto contigo. Si te gustó, compártelo con quien tú quieras y ayúdanos a que crezca esta magnífica comunidad de aprendizaje. Yo soy Natalia Martí y a nombre de Equidam Global me despido de ustedes. Hasta la próxima.